Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about bulk selling. Now, Firegrass made a video a few days ago where he talked about sort of these deals on TFT where people buy your whole tabs. So for example, in this scenario, we have Scarabs. And he talks about how you actually lose a ton of divines doing that under the wrong circumstances. I'm going to talk about when you maybe should take that, when you should not take it especially. We're going to talk about some tricks to actually sell your own stuff. Right now, I want to focus in on something that I saw on Kobe's video. So Kobe basically made a video talking about his worst trade experience ever. And in there, I heard something really interesting that gets echoed by a lot of the community that I want to go over, a certain common misconception with trading that I want to go over and give you guys some things to say about. But let's quickly go over what Kobe has to say here.
Now, this is a huge tab to sell, right? If you want to sell this many Scarabs in one go, you could be there for hours. You could have to price it all out. You have to find a bunch of buyers who's willing to buy it. And I was kind of at a loss of what I was going to do.
So number one, if you don't know who Kobe is, he's really good at the game, very efficient player, blaster, right? What he says here is probably going to come, I don't actually know, I'm going to assume he has a trader, so he doesn't spend much time actually bulk selling his stuff. And this game is so vast, we all have our blind spots, so this is in no way or form any shade towards Kobe here. I just want to take this statement because this is a sentiment that a lot of people share. So the statement is, if you have a lot of Scarabs, that means a lot of trades and a lot of time lost, which is actually not true. There is no difference between you selling 281 Rusted Legion Scarabs or selling 17. The mistake that people make is they don't price everything at once, thinking, oh, nobody's going to want 281. They do. I'm doing it every week. People sell this in one trade. And there is no difference in you putting out the calculator and typing in 17 or typing in 281. So why is this so important? Well, it's because there is a new statement that arises out of this wrong statement here, which is if you have a ton of Scarabs, you should bulk sell on TFT because you're actually saving more time. When in reality, it's actually the exact opposite. And I'm going to give you an example here about the Rusted Legion Scarab that we just talked about. Now, to give you a little bit of background, there's people on TFT, which is a Discord, that buy your whole stash tab, basically alleviating you out of all the trading time. You can go back to mapping, which sounds really, really nice, right? But they're going to take a cut for their time, obviously, because they're taking your Scarabs and now they have to sell it themselves. The problem here, and what Firegrass is basically alluding to in his video, is that this is a lot more than people are willing to understand, and it gets worse and worse the more Scarabs you have. So let's take an example here of 281 Rusted Legion Scarabs versus 17, which is the example I did. Both take the same amount of time. So let's compare what it would be on the trading website and what it would be on TFT. As an example, right now in bulk, Rusted Legion Scarabs go for 1.5, and what you would get from the trader is probably around about 1 to 1.2. Just to play devil's advocate here, I put you only lose 0.3 chaos per Rusted Legion, which would come out to 1.2, which I think is very fair. So if you multiply that with 281, you have 84.3 chaos. And what this number means is it's the amount of chaos you just saved by not selling to bulk selling to somebody on TFT. Now, on the other hand, if you only have 17 Rusted Legion Scarabs, right, we do the same thing and it's only 5.1 chaos you save. And if we extrapolate one of those trades to an hour of time, we just take this times 60, that would mean that you are losing an opportunity to trade for 1 hour and make 24 divines. Whereas if you only have 17 Rusted Legions and you extrapolate it, you only make 1.4 divines per hour. So what is the takeaway from this? The takeaway is that if you have a ton of bulk, like Kobe in his video right here, there is no chance you should be bulk selling this to a trader. Like, whoever gets this trade, I want to be this trader. Actually, Kobe, call me. I'm going to sell your Scarabs from here on out. My DMs are open, dude. I'll do this any day. I'm even going to get you better conditions, right? I'm fine with making 25 divines per hour, right? But if you have small bulk, TFT is actually awesome. Now, if your tab looks more like this, for example, where you have 11, 29, 8, right? This is already a little bit more bulk, so it gets a little bit more into a gray zone, but like 9, 3, 28, right? Then you should be selling on TFT. It's actually a very nice time saver overall. So one more problem that Kobe came across himself, which is why he titled this as the worst trading experience ever, is that he actually still had to click your stuff. Guess what? Even if you're selling your stash to somebody, you still have to put everything in your stash and trade it to them. Because the comparison that I just showed you is assuming that it takes no time to sell a whole stash to somebody, but it still does. You can't just transfer it to him, right? You still have to do the trades, at which point the upside of actually selling your whole stash gets diminished even more. So a question I want to go into that I get a lot is this actually a scam? Could you consider this a scam? And I'm going to give you a little bit of insight on that. So the number one thing I'm looking at right now when I'm looking at Pure Ninja is just some of these completely wrong prices. If we go to Gilded Metamorph Scarab right here, and we would type in, let's say 20 bulk of Gilded Metamorph Scarabs, which is absolutely insane at 1.5 Chaos. Let's see how the reality actually looks like. Let's see for Chaos. Well, you're going to see that you can sell them for between 5 to 5.5 Chaos each. So on each of these Gilded Metamorph Scarabs, if he's selling for like 110, 120%, whatever he's doing, he's going to lose around about 3 Chaos. So straight up, that is like, I mean, that is just crazy, right? That is insanity. For something that you can sell extremely quickly, there is no excuse for current PoE Ninja prices. And Firegrass actually goes over that in his video, basically saying there's some price fixing going on, way harsher price fixing than usual. Now, before this patch, usually when you sold your tap to somebody, there was a mutual understanding that you're selling for convenience, right? They get the bulk price and you kind of get the convenience of not having to sell. So you can't really call it a scam because technically there's a mutual understanding. But if there's price fixing in here and it is crazy like this, like the numbers are just wrong, then we get into scam territory. And I'll give you a little bit of an analogy. Imagine your broker calls you or you call them and they're giving you a good opportunity to invest. You understand that when you make money from whatever investment you make, they are also going to make your money. Your broker is going to get a cut of that. But now imagine you give them $1,000 and they're not investing all the $1,000. They're actually only investing like $700 and the rest they're just pocketing, right? That is straight up a scam. And that is the same that's happening here. The facts get distorted. You can't make a educated decision. So while the people who are buying your tabs aren't necessarily at fault, they might not even be the people who are price fixing, there's still a huge question mark here because we're talking about double to triple the price. And in a sense, you're getting scammed. Yeah. So before I go into giving you some tips and tricks here, I just want to preface this by saying the trading system is incredibly annoying right now. In absolutely no way do I want to defend GGG at all. This trading system is very cumbersome. So there is no inkling of me kind of saying this trading system is fine. What I'm saying is I want to give you some tips and tricks to make it a little bit less painful because this trading system hasn't really changed in a while. So either you have to cope with it or you just don't trade at all. You play solo Saffron, which I think is a really, really cool alternative for people who just don't want to engage with it at all. But for people who still want to play trade, there is tricks to make your trading experience better. And these I will outline in this video. Now, there's a lot of talk about like min-maxing the fun out of PoE, stuff like that. Usually what it is just small things you learn over time. It's not something I almost have to think about ever. It's just small tips and tricks that just kind of, they become muscle memory, right? It's like when you ride a bike for the first 10 times, you're going to have to like think, oh, well, and then it's just a normal experience and you don't really even think about it. So those are the kind of things we're going to talk about in this video. Let's get into it. One small tidbit, if you've never traded in bulk before, none of the things I'm about to say really make much sense to you. Check out my video in the description. I actually made a video about bulk selling like 6 to 7 months ago. It still is completely up to date. Basically, it just goes into how to actually price. Now, let's go into the number one point here, though, which is do trading sessions. A lot of people have this practice where they're like, oh, now I have like this amount of essences, let's price it. Or, oh, now I have this amount, I might need the currency, right? In reality, while you're farming, you shouldn't really need the currency usually. So just wait and do it all at once. And there's a few reasons. Sell everything after like 5, 10, 20, 50 hours of playing. This depends on how much you're playing, obviously. If you have a job, if you're in uni, how much time you actually have, how much free time. So number one here is it does not interrupt your gameplay since 90% of the things will be sold immediately. So sell everything at once. Basically take some time to sell after a farming session, right? Do farming session, trading session. This can be 5 hours, this can be 50 hours. It completely depends. Do you have a job? Do you have a family? Are you in uni? Whatever. However much time you have to play. Now this does exclude league start scenarios because at league start, every little upgrade can actually matter to make your build better. So you want to liquidate more often to make your character stronger. But the big upside here is that it doesn't interrupt your gameplay. Obviously, everybody who ever used a headhunter knows how annoying it is. You can't really pull it out because you lose all your buffs, so that's already obvious. But then also you have sort of this mindset. I don't know if you guys know this, but when you put on some good music or you have like a podcast, you kind of get in sort of a trance state where you just farm in, right? You just having fun. It's exhilarating. You're popping mobs. You have your Herald of Ice Shatters. And that's because we're doing one thing, right? You don't have to think about several things at once. So that is number one here. That's really, really important. Number two, it also gives you higher bulk, and higher bulk can give you better prices. As we talked about earlier, it's still one trade, but you have more to trade. There's no difference between selling 300 or not. I'm going to give you an example later. And the reason you get better prices is because people save time. They only have to trade once with you instead of having to do like 20 small trades. So usually that is why bulk is priced higher. Also, you're not just selling scarabs, right? So our example just was about scarabs, but you have essences, you have fossils, whatever you can find in bulk, maybe maps, right? So in total, you don't have to think about it as like selling scarabs per hour. Everything kind of just like comes together when you do a trading session. So you don't waste as much time. You get whispered very often. There's not going to be you standing around unless you misprice. Let's talk about that next. So number two is undercut slightly and try to price in nines. So what does underpricing actually mean? It means you look at the whole picture of what people have put their scarabs up for, and then you price it under them. So there is a few caveats to that, because you could just say here, okay, I'm just going to price it a little bit under 1.5 and it's going to sell immediately. It's not that easy, because sometimes the lowest one are actually price fixers. So usually if there's like these crazy jumps, like from 1.5 to 1.65, you want to be a little bit cautious. For example, what I would price it here would be for like 1.6. Like I said, I'll give you a pricing example at the end, but for now, what you need to know is that this basically gets you back into maps faster. You're kind of like scamming yourself, but instead of scamming yourself for like, I don't know, 25, 30%, you're scamming yourself for like 1%. And you might think there's no way that scamming yourself for 1% is going to give you faster trades, but the reason it does is because people have life searches. So people like traders have their life searches up, or they're just refreshing, whatever they do, they have their apps. But basically, they will go as far as have a certain price barrier. And if you're over that price barrier, even if it's just like 1 or 2 chaos, they're not going to buy. And then if you price it down by like 2 chaos, they're going to buy instantly. If you've ever sold, for example, an expensive divination card, or even like mid-tier divination cards, you will know exactly what I know. For example, patience. You price something from like 50 chaos to 49, and all of a sudden you get like 10 messages and you're like, what just happened? So in total, just pricing something, for example, the Rusted Legion scarabs we just talked about, pricing them from 449 to 444 might save you hours of waiting to get your trade. Let's talk about pricing stuff in nines. I always try to do this, and that is because simply it works. It's kind of like a psychological thing, and there's a reason why, for example, in supermarkets, you will often see $8.99, $4.99. And the effect here is pretty easy to explain. It is because it seems like it's $9. There has been studies on this over and over and over. If you ask people how much a certain product costed and it was priced at $9.99, a lot of people will say $9, whereas in reality, it's almost $10. It's literally 1 cent off. So you can use this to your advantage, shave off 1 chaos off of something, and you'll get way faster trades. It also matters because most people don't do this, so you're going to be placed higher. For example, these people do it, right? They have like 169. They know what they're doing, and they're going to be on top of whoever has, for example, scarabs up for 1.7. They're going to lose like 1 chaos, whereas the other person is just going to be listed lower. So people are going to instinctively whisper the best offers. Now, everything I just said is you should disregard if you're just a trader, right? You're sitting in your hideout all day. Maybe you're crafting a little bit on the side. I don't have to tell you what to do anyways, but just to point this out, this undercutting stuff doesn't really matter, because as a trader, you can wait, right? You have time. If you sell it tomorrow, it's not really going to matter unless you want to liquidate. This is mostly for people who actually want to play the game. Number 3, price in chaos. This is not always correct. I would say like 95 to 99% of the time. We're going to go into some of the caveats. I'll just explain my reasoning. So if you do what I just said earlier, which is only doing 1 trade, for example, you have 207 of a scarab and you price them all at once, then pricing it in divines doesn't really make any sense, because then the amount you have would have to line up perfectly with how much a divine is worth. So to explain this, I'll just take an example out of my own stash tab here. I have 356 rusted reliquary scarabs. If I were to price it, I would go here. I would see round about 0.9. With this kind of bulk, you could probably sell for more, but let's just say 0.9. So you do 356 times 0.9, and you're at 320 chaos. Now, currently, divines are 212 chaos. So if we think about this, right? So 320 chaos for 356. What you would have to do is if you price it for divines, you would now have to price, I don't know, however many it is for divines, like 230, 240 for divines, and then you would have leftovers because you can't reach 2 divines. So now you would have to first price in for 1 divine, then do that trade. So that's 1 trade. have that covered, right? You have your divine, and now you have to reprice, go back. Let's say you have like 110 of these left, right? Now you have to look what's 110 worth times 0.9. You have to price it in, right? You have to type it in here again, and then you have to do a second trade. When in reality, it's just pretty damn easy to liquidate from chaos to divines. We're going to go over that later, but that is basically my first point. Number 2 is people will often give you divines anyways. You're not the only person who doesn't like clicking a lot. You're not the only person who has a lot of his stuff in divines. For example, here, if somebody buys your 356 for a 320 chaos, there's a, let's say 50-50, probably even better chance that they're going to throw in 1 divine and the rest in chaos anyways. Now, another reason why selling in chaos is good is that a lot of the times you're actually going to get more out of it. Very often, people like to trade for divines for convenience. They have divines, they don't want to click as often. So you're going to have these weird scenarios where you actually get less for divine, right? So in that case, you should check here. In this case, for example, you get a pretty reasonable price here. It seems very much the same as in chaos. But for example, if these 3 were not online, you might be tricked into thinking that a divine is only worth 170, whereas you would have gotten like 230 if you bought in chaos. Now, like I said, it's actually easier to convert chaos to divines than you think. I'm going to go over that in a second. Just a small thing here at the end that I couldn't really put into any other category is don't put out your items unless the trader is already in your hideout. So what this means is basically, and this annoyance that a lot of people have is people get spam whispered, right? Sometimes people take your invitation, but then they leave. So you already put everything in your inventory and now you have to put it back and reprice. So what you do is, for example, let's say we have this here for 319 chaos, you get 356 rusted reliquary scarab. That's how we price it. And now somebody whispers you for it. You invite him, they take the invitation. Now what should you do? Well, you're going to click them out of here, but until they are in your hideout, you do not click the last one here. Now, once you've clicked the last ones out and they actually just leave the trade because maybe somebody else who has better conditions just invited them and they're an asshole, right? Now, if you put this out, your trade is gone and you have to type everything in again. Maybe you cannot remember how much it was. You'll have to look again. That is the worst. So this is how you're going to do it. Once they're in your hideout, you put out the last 6 ones. So this can't happen to you. So to harp back to this point, I'm actually going to give you a little bit of a Scarab farming session on how I would tackle, for example, selling Kobe's tap. I always do this over on twitch.tv/Palsteron. Usually selling sessions are something that I thought would be boring, but for a lot of people, they actually really like it. So maybe I'm going to upload one eventually. So how do we go about this? Number 1, you convert all the bad gildeds with harvest. Now here comes the problem already because there's some price fixing going on. Gilded Metamorph Scarabs actually sell in bulk for 5 chaos right now, which is really concerning that it's here for like 2 chaos. So it can be really hard to figure out what the bad ones are, but that's just something that comes with experience. So the things that people aren't really using is Shaper, Torment, stuff like that, which we're going to convert. Also Elder. The reason Elder is not that good is because it basically does the same thing as a rusted one. So we're just going to put these out. I'm just going to give you an example here with how you would do that. Obviously, if you have a lot of those, it's even more important. So we're going to type in scarabs here. So what you can do is you can change the stacks to something else. You do this. In this case, we got ambush, which are like 10 to 11 chaos per. So you just got a lot of money with just that one button click because these would have only sold for like 2 to 3 chaos. We do the same with our Shaper scarabs until we get something okay. Harvey isn't even that good right now, so we can convert it again if we want to. Abyss sells a lot better. Now, next up, and this is not something I would really advise you to do. I think if you're efficient, you should probably hide some of the really bad scarabs. But if you have the bad scarabs, you might as well do the 2-to-1 recipe. So the thing about what I just did on Harvest is it actually costs you a flat fee. It's not just for a stack. It is for every single scarab. You pay 30 of this, which is round about a chaos right now per conversion, which is worth it for gildeds, but not really for scarabs. But there is another recipe that you can do, and that is the Scarab recipe, basically. So, for example, Rusted Torment Scarabs will never sell. If I take 2 of this and I put 1 Horizon Orb in here and I sell it, I get a random new Scarab, which might be worth, might be not. On average, it's going to be okay. It's definitely going to be an upgrade. Obviously, this sounds very cumbersome, but you can do this in a whole tab. So since an inventory can hold 60, you cannot have more than 60 converted at a time. So you click out 50 here, 50 here, and 120 convert into 60. So let's say another 20 from the Harvey. Then you put in 60 Orb of Horizons. Now you go here. You sell these like this. And you get exactly 60 back, and these are going to be random ones. Most of them are going to be worth more than the bad ones you just sold. Now, another nice thing about the 2 things we just did is we converted some of the scarabs, and we're going to have to do 1 less trade. So, for example, in theory, we would have converted all of the Shaper scarabs. We would have converted all of the Torment scarabs. Is there anything else we probably would have converted? Maybe the Abyss Scarabs, I'm actually not sure. So these would take one less trade. But let's get into the nitty gritty. Now you actually have to price your stuff. So obviously I don't have much bulk, so we're going to take Kobe's example here again, and we're just going to go through it. The way I do it is you really have to think about what your minimum stock is. The more bulk you have, the better it sells. So what I usually do is I go through the rusteds, then I go through all the polished, and then I go through all the gildeds. And that's because you usually have different amounts of each. For example, he has a lot of rusteds, like 4 times as many rusteds as gildeds. So it would be kind of annoying to go like rusted, have 100, then go here, have to change this all the time. So just do all the rusteds, then do all the polished, do all the legions. But let's go through an actual example here. So for example, we have 100, and let's go to something that we wouldn't convert. Breach we would convert. It's not worth that much. Let's go to, for example, Expedition for Chaos. Let's search right here. And now we have the prices. So the price structure here is a little interesting. You have 2.4, 2.5, 2.5, and then you have like a price jump to 2.8, which is a little bit unusual. This might mean that not a lot of people want to buy it, but usually the answer is going to be somewhere in between here. So we're going to price it for around about 2.7. Could be very well that these people are price fixing. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at our stash, or in this case, Kobe's example. We have 349 Expedition Scarabs. So what we do is 349 times 2.7. We have 942. Now what I usually do is I skim a little bit off to get to the 9s, right? So for example, I would take 939 as my price. So you go to your stash tab and you do 939 for the Thor 339 here. Important to note is that the chaos price always comes first. Don't get confused by this being next to the chaos. This is the amount you're willing to sell. You price this, and now you basically have this trading offer right here, and somebody's going to buy it. Now you might think, no, nobody's going to buy it. That's like more than an inventory of chaos. What's going to happen is somebody's going to whisper you. They want all of it, and they're going to pay you in a fraction of divines and in a fraction of chaos. It happens every single time. The more you undercut, the faster you will sell. So in a sense, the more efficient you are, the more you should actually undercut. Now, when we're talking about undercutting here, this is nowhere near what TFT would undercut you. So you can definitely be deliberate with this. Cutting an extra 5 or 10 chaos off of 1,000 chaos can save you a lot of time. Now, let's say that you're done with rusteds. Now we're at polished and you don't have that many polished. Let's say you type in like minimum of 50 to kind of gauge the price of 50 bulk. We take polished Expedition Scarab here as an example. We can see that most of them sell for 7. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at how many we have, 157, and we're going to undercut by a little bit, 6.9 times 157. We'll undercut even a little bit lower, let's say 1,069. Once again, you want to get to the 9s. And we're going to go here and say 157,069. So 1,069 chaos for 157 scarabs right here. And now somebody can whisper you for it. The same is going to happen. Somebody is going to actually sell it for divines. Now, one thing that can happen at this amount of bulk, like these are more of the extreme examples, all the ones that go for like 400, 500 chaos, you're going to sell basically immediately. Sometimes people don't want to buy for this amount of bulk, and then you can start pricing in divines, but usually you should always start out with chaos. And yeah, you rinse and repeat this for every single scarab. Now, here you're going to say, this is really annoying, right? That sounds like a lot of time. In reality, this is why you do sessions, right? You don't want to do this every day. You don't want to do this every second day. You want to do it like once per week, once every 5 days, whenever you want to liquidate. And at the start, it might be annoying because you don't know the small minutiae. Maybe you could get a little bit of extra info from this video. You're going to get faster with the math. Just have your calc out. It's not that hard. You're going to get better over time, more efficient over time, which means you're going to make more currency out of trading. In general, this is a very important skill to have. Once again, if you have no idea about the basics of bulk selling, check out my video. I'll link it down in the description. So now what? You just priced everything. What's going to happen? Well, around about 50 to 80% of the taps will sell immediately. This depends on when it is in the league. If it's very late, it's maybe going to take a little bit longer. Also, how well you priced. Did you undercut enough? Were you too conservative? So let's, for example, say that you didn't price aggressive enough. You have to reprice after an hour or so. I would wait a little bit. So basically, if we go here for this example where we priced 349 of our scarabs for 939 chaos, you can like shave off 20C right here, do this, and most of the time now you're gonna get a direct trade unless you're really mispriced. And this doesn't necessarily have to be your fault, right? Sometimes you price and you look at it, and then you look at it like 20 minutes later, and there's a few people online who are undercutting you, or they're just selling at exactly the same time, and there's not that many buyers online. So it doesn't have to be your mistake, just readjust after a bit of time. Now you might think, what do you mean an hour? I don't wanna sit around for an hour, but that's because you're not just selling your scarabs. As I said already, you want to do selling sessions. You're selling your essences, your fossils, your maps. You have constant trading to do if you price correctly. So you'll be doing stuff for an hour anyways, and then at some point you're going to be like, oh, let's look at this. This didn't sell. This didn't sell. Let's reprice these 3 scarabs that didn't sell. And I've been doing this for years, exactly this way. It always works. No matter whether people tell you scarabs don't sell this late in the league, essences don't sell that late in the league. It's bogus. It always sells. You just have to price correctly. And then at the end here, how do you liquidate your chaos? So what's going to happen if you have a selling session like this, right? So for example, we're farming beyond right now. We're going to get a ton of chaos out of these. I'm going to price them for chaos. So let's say often it happens that you have a 15 to 25,000 chaos sometimes if you farm for long enough. Obviously, for some people, it's going to be 5,000, 4,000. How do you liquidate that into divines? Isn't that annoying? Well, no, not really. You just have to kind of like understand what's going on. So instead of you going to divines and buying for chaos, right? You have to think about it the other way around. This is going to be annoying. You're going to whisper people. They're not going to reply. What you want to do is them coming to you. You want to think about you're not buying anything. You're selling chaos, right? So you want to think in their shoes. So they are buying chaos for divines. So you look at this, and right here you see there's a lot of people selling for 212 each, right? So they're selling for 422 for 2 divines. All you have to do in a situation like this, and kind of like a stalemate where everybody is selling their chaos and they all have the same price, is go up by a single chaos, and you're going to show up right up here. If you want to go even more aggressive, you can compete with these people. That completely depends on how long you want to take. But if you can price this for example, 213 chaos, or even for 425 chaos for 2 divines, people are going to whisper you over all of these people. So instead of whispering people, you're going to sell your chaos. So however many chaos you have, right, you make your tab public right here. And what you do is you're selling chaos for divines. So you're saying 2 divines, right? So you put in divine orb right here for, let's say in this example, 425 chaos, right? So this is how it's going to look like, and now people are going to start whispering you. If you're right here, they're probably going to whisper you pretty aggressively. If you want to just get inundated with messages, you put it right up here. When it comes to stuff like Divine for Chaos, or back in the day, Exalted for Chaos, people are constantly flipping them. So you're going to get whispers really, really quick, and you can convert all the chaos you made into divines basically immediately. Also, small tip here at the end, whenever you put something up for trade, it's not on trade immediately. It takes like cycles, like 5-minute cycles where it's going to put it up for trade. What you want to do is circumvent that by actually switching instances. Once you portal into Highgate, now it's actually put onto trade, and now people are going to whisper you. So this is where often you will see this phenomena where you price something, you go into a map, and immediately you get whispers, and you're like, oh, this is so unlucky. It's not unlucky, it's because you switched instances, and when you're doing bulk trading, for example, you can basically put this to your advantage. So in conclusion, the more bulk you have, the better, the easier it is to sell. The people who have a lot of currency are also the people who are buying a lot of stock, right? So it's actually the other way around. That's something you have to realize, and something that you have to go into, where the more of something you have, the more worthwhile it is for you to actually do the trade. The trading system is really annoying. A lot of the small things I said right now seem annoying to you, but I can assure you that over time, it is so obvious. It is like muscle memory. It's like at the start, you have to think about what you click, and in the end, it's like you don't even have to think about it anymore. It's just second nature. What I said about trading sessions really holds true. You should have these liquidating sessions, or whatever you call them, where you just sell once and then you go back to mapping. It's also going to be a lot more fun. You don't have to concentrate on a lot of things. And at the end, don't scam yourself. I don't care how much you hate trading, but if you're giving somebody else the opportunity to make 24 divines per hour off of you, you must really hate trade. Now, I don't like trade either, but if I'm talking about 24 divines, I can have a lot of fun with those 24 divines. So learning a lot of these small details that I showed in this video, I think might help you a lot, seeing trade in a little bit of a different light at least. I really hope some of these issues are going to be addressed by GGG over time. For now, we just have to kind of take what we get, or we play solo self-found. It is what it is. With that said, I hope this video could help you out a little, and see ya. But that's it for the video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, subscribe. As always, a huge shout out to my Twitch subscribers and my Patreons. I couldn't do videos like this without you. Thank you so much for the support, and yeah, I hope you could pick up 1 or 2 things. Once again, if you thought, what the hell is this video? I don't know what's going on. Definitely watch my introduction to bulk selling. When it comes to making currency in general, there's this thought that it's all about the next farming strat, but liquidating your assets is actually at least as important and it's also something that you will always have to do, whereas farming strats always change. So it's a really, really good skill to have. But with that being said, since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.